Nancy Rynes has a bad feeling in her stomach as she rides her bike to run an errand. She shouldn't be here. Not sure why she feels this way. For 3 weeks prior to this, every night she dreams of butterflies. What did that mean? Was this a warning of some kind? She enters a traffic circle and all is fine until she sees a car entering the circle from her right. And of course, it's going to see her and stop, right? Except it doesn't. There's another car immediately behind Nancy, so she can't stop. Whatever she does now, there's going to be a collision. And on that bike, completely exposed, it's going to hurt badly. In other words, she's done. And when you know it, you know it. The hit is brutal. When the car on her right slams into her, she flips onto the hood. So she grabs onto that hood for dear life, trying desperately not to be sucked under that car. Because yes, the car is still moving and showing no signs of slowing. Now, how could that be? The reason is that the woman behind the wheel is too busy texting to see she had just hit someone. Never mind that Nancy is begging for her life on the other side of that windshield. It doesn't take long before Nancy loses her grip. She hits pavement and grabs onto anything she can find to not be run over. 2 things happen at this point. One of the straps of her backpack catches onto something underneath the car, and her hand somehow finds the axle, both of which prevent her from being completely swallowed up under the car. By this point, as it would later be discovered, she has already broken over 100 bones in her body. Her mind races. It's all about survival now. Now what happens next is when things actually become strange. Nancy finds herself watching the scene from over 50 feet or 15 meters away. From that point outside her body, she can still feel the adrenaline flow through her veins, her heart pound, while at the same time watching herself struggle under that car from a great distance. Now, people undergoing this amount of stress can feel detached from their body, even separated from their thoughts and feelings, as if watching themselves from a point of view outside of their body. They may even feel that reality is not real. It just feels fake, like a dream. This is a condition known as depersonalization, derealization. It can occur for a few minutes, hours, or even months or longer, depending on the person and the circumstances. It could be argued that this is precisely what's happening to Nancy. Note, however, that she watches the scene from 50 feet away. This is far more than just feeling detached from your body. But here's the thing. I know that this is going to sound strange to many of you if you don't already know this, but the fact that you feel that you belong in your body is already an illusion. There are several brain areas thought to be involved in giving you a sense of self, a feeling that your body belongs to you, that you're inside your body. What I'm saying here that's important is that it is possible to be free of that illusion and realize that your consciousness, your essence, or spirit if you prefer, is not located in a point inside your head. It is not located anywhere. Does that mean that it is everywhere, such as what is claimed by a view known as panpsychism? I don't know, but what I do know is that Nancy's experience is consistent with consciousness not being confined to the body. The car now drags Nancy across the pavement. When it finally stops, it's only because it is blocked from going any further by another driver who saw what was happening. 3 days later, Nancy has a near-death experience, or NDE, when she flatlines on the surgical table. I often question why near-death experiences always seem to bring up human figures. It gets even stranger when people see landscapes, trees, flowers, and earthly scenes. The human form and nature look the way they do because they have specifically adapted to survive and thrive on Earth. So why would these things still exist after death where there is no purpose to their form? Nancy's own NDE may answer that question. During the 2 minutes in which she stops breathing and her heart stops beating, Nancy finds herself in a world of gray. This is probably due to the anesthesia. But note that you're not supposed to be aware of being in this foggy state. The whole purpose of anesthesia is to make you unconscious. But soon enough, she finds herself standing in the middle of a meadow with beautiful grass under a strange blue sky. There are even hills in the distance. She knows she's supposed to be under anesthesia, but this has a feel of being more real than anything she has ever known. It's not a dream. It's not an hallucination. And yet, it makes no sense whatsoever. Why in the world would she be standing in grass? Never mind how beautiful the scenery may be. Did she die? And this is what death really looks like? Nancy was trained as a scientist. And as a scientist would, you'd want to figure out why in the world you'd be seeing a very real natural scene that really only belongs on Earth. There was nothing about this that made any sense. So she simply refuses to believe it. As she begins to explore and touches flowers, trees, and other natural objects, they emit their own energy, their own light. And yet, it doesn't feel weird or absurd. Everything instead makes sense, feels more real, more tangible than life on Earth. This is a common experience in NDEs, by the way. For Nancy, the doubts slowly fade. She now knows, to her own amazement, beyond doubt, that this is, in fact, absolutely real. Suddenly, a booming voice says, "Welcome home." I know, it sounds ominously like the voice of God in something out of a movie. But remember that people hearing anything during these experiences are not actually hearing. They usually describe these sounds or voices as more like a knowing, like information filling their consciousness, like telepathy. Tricia Barker, who has had an incredible NDE, was kind enough to leave a comment on a recent video in which I cover her story. And she describes communication during an NDE as being just like telepathy. In the midst of this, Nancy feels not just welcomed, but embraced and loved unconditionally. She describes this as the best feeling and the most accepted she has ever felt. So she gets a bit curious now. She turns and sees that the world behind her disappears into the fog. It's just gone, implying that the world in front of her is created on the fly and dissipates behind her as she walks. The world she is in is not real in the sense that it is permanent. It is only real in the sense that it is concrete, solid, but created for her. Now someone appears near her, another made-up form, and that figure tells her that this world is in fact created to seem familiar, to make her comfortable, to simply put her at ease. What this means is that what you see during an NDE is not to be taken as reality itself. So what does death really look like? If consciousness continues beyond bodily death, then one might expect that the true reality behind what we see while alive, the one that explains everything, may finally reveal itself. Just not immediately after death, but beyond that. Many people who came back from the brink of death will mention that there is some kind of threshold that they cannot cross. They know that when they do cross it, they absolutely do not come back. So this limbo that a near-death experience is really all about seems to be an introduction, a transition for whatever comes next. And I will bet my two cats, Achilles and Homer, they're yours, that whatever lies beyond that threshold is nothing, and I mean nothing, like what we see, hear, or feel on Earth. But of course I can do that, because I know full well that anyone crossing that threshold will never come back to tell us what's there and challenge me. Plus, I really would never give away my cats. Think of the near-death experience as like a very comfortable waiting room. Now, do realize that in some cases, in some few cases, this waiting room may not be a very pleasant experience, but for some people, pure hell. I currently have nothing to say about those experiences, but I can see how someone with a Christian background may conclude that it is simply, actually, hell. However, these experiences are sometimes reported as only being temporary, because some do seem to eventually move on to a more pleasant and welcoming environment. Now, Nancy is led to a pond. I believe this is to be symbolic, because when she touches it, she is given a life review. In that review, what she experiences is consistent with what many report. She sees and feels from the point of view of all those she has affected by her words or actions, whether they were affected negatively, even traumatized, or positively through her acts of kindness. There are no judgments other than her own self-judgment and assessment of what she could or should have done. Nancy is today alive and well, and that NDE changed her forever. She now believes that life as we know it is just a simulation in a greater reality that we will all one day rediscover as simply going home. My name is Rick from Psychology of the Strange, and I hope to see you next time.